Hi, ladies and gentlemen, I got something that's on my mind I want to share with you. What do you think a man is? A man. Most people might think that a man, first of all, can make babies. Then, after making a baby, then he can provide for them, put them up, make sure they got food, clothing, stuff like this, go to school. And for the most part, that is definitely included in being a man. But that's the small part of being a man. A man is much more than that. A man is one that not only protects his family by making sure they are not hungry, making sure that they got a place to stay. He's one that keeps them free from clowns that would put them in bondage. He would protect them from becoming slaves. He would protect them from having to struggle their whole dead blasted life trying to breathe. He would protect them from people or governments taking away their insurance, taking away their health care, taking away their education, telling their women what they can do. A man makes sure that life is abundant. It really gets me because I'm what you might call a different kind of man. Oh, I've been there. But what do? I got children, and every last one of them will tell you that I've never done one thing as far as trying to help them go to college, going through regular school, public schools, and stuff like that, combing their hair, ironing their clothes, feeding them. Yes, but trying to make sure that they go to college while I knew they wanted it, while I wanted them to have it. I don't just want my kids to have it. I want all kids to have it. And my grandkids, all grandkids. I want them to have the benefits of life. And if I'm out there struggling, doing everything I can, fighting dog, eat dog, trying to make sure that this house has its mortgage paid, trying to make sure that these kids got some clothes on, that's a, even if I was successful, that's the best that I could do. But sometimes, just sometimes, God chooses other people to do other things. And it just so happened that God chose me. And so, in order for me to be real, I had to sacrifice what the normal people do to make sure that every effort I gave was to make sure that everybody can do it. Everyone. Now, I'll share the truth with you. I've done this for 40 years. I've spoken about peace and prosperity and freedom and joy and happiness from every individual, not just in America, but on earth. Why? Because it's a righteous way of life. I talked about you having your needs, your wants, and your desires met. Why? Because it's a righteous way of life. I talked about you never having to worry about food, clothing, shelter, education, healthcare, transportation, or any of that. Why? Because it's a righteous way to live. I talked about you having a career that you choose, that gives you your greatest joy, that allows you to participate in life. Why? Because it's the righteous way to do it. And doing it that way, my friends, that's when you have peace and prosperity and freedom and joy and can live your dreams. Otherwise, you out there fighting dog eat dog. That's the ordinary man. No, but you don't get any recognition for serving God. You can be doing exactly what God tells you to do, calls you to do. But it still requires that people say yes. It still requires that people say this is okay with me. And if they don't, you're not going to be achieving anything because God is not going to force you. But just because God doesn't force you to do the righteous thing, that doesn't mean you have to give up and do the unrighteous thing just to fit in. No. So I sit before you today and I tell you, I got grandkids that I never helped. You think I like that? Hell no, I don't like that. You think I like having my kids being absent the education and stuff that so many other people have? No, I don't like it. But there's something more important, and that's that all kids have access to it. It makes sure that people don't be ran out of this country. Have people like Trump and MAGA and white folks treat black people the way that they treat them. It takes a man to stand up against that. And if you're concerned running around trying to get somebody to give you a job, trying to make sure you can get a little increase on this and know how to pay taxes, what kind of man is that? That's a loser. But a loser is what people know about. People don't know about the righteous man. because they don't live too long. People like Gandhi, people like King, people like Medgar Evers, and so many others. They don't live long because they're killed. They're killed because they're real men. The world is walking around with phony men running across borders trying to say, "Can you give me a place to stay? Can you put me up? I work for you for change." That's what phony men do. Real men don't do that. Real men stand up and make things right. And so I do it. I stand up because God chose me to. And in choosing me to do that, God showed me God's hand, that I know that God's real. And you don't. So you at least you got an excuse. I don't have that excuse. So what am I saying? Why am I saying this? I'm saying it because there are many men out there that stands up for what is right. And they don't walk the path that everybody else walks. They stand up for what is right. And they don't get any recognition for it. In fact, they get put down and called a nobody. But when they're called a nobody, my friends, that's when you have a government taking away your education, taking away your jobs. How many people have lost their jobs in the United States of America in the past 6 or 7 months? Because one man said it. Well, he wasn't a man, one fool said it. And you know what? All of those so-called men who were trying to pay their mortgage or rent, all of those so-called men who were trying to get their kids in college, all of those so-called men who were trying to do what they call a normal thing, got kicked out of the jobs. And what happened to it? Nothing. Nothing happened. Why? Because they weren't men in the beginning. They were pretenders. They were pretenders. And you know what I'm talking about. Look at Trump. That whole Republican Party seems are nothing but pretenders. Any men in there? Where are they? There's not a single real man in the Republican Party. And starting with Trump. Not a real man anywhere. And in the Democratic Party, there ain't no real men in the Democratic Party. They talk that talk, but they've been walking that same old stupid walk ever since there's been a Democratic Party. Yes, this is a fact. Now, when I stand before you and tell you that it's important for me that all of you have what is right in life, I stand and back it up because I put my kids with you. If they get an education, if they get the benefits of life, then so do you. Why? Because I represent what is right. But that's neither here nor there. I just want you to know there's a difference between men and men. One is a flute and the other one is righteous. And what we have in America and across the globe are flukes. Why do you think Putin is able to do what he does? Because you got fluky men. Why do you think Netanyahu is able to do what he does? Because he got fluky men. Why do you think North Korea does what he does? Because they got fluky men. Why do you think the Philippines and all these other people that Donald Trump called men, power men, strong men? Why do you think they're able to do what they do? Because they got flukes running around calling themselves men. Every man knows that the earth belongs to God and the resources belong to God, and they were made available to every human being that could use them. That's what they were for. They wasn't made for somebody to take and use them and run them over your head like they're somebody. They'll do it to fluky people, because fluky people don't know any better. Yeah, but they'll call on a man to be fluky. Well, if God calls you, you're not gonna be fluky, and you'll stand there until you die. I hope I made some sense.